So Chetan made a very interesting observation, which is what is called the key observation, right? Which essentially says that if in your interference graph, right, if there is any node n whose degree is less than k, the number of colors that you have to color the graph, right, you can just remove that particular node with edges less than k, right? And if the remaining graph can be k colored, then the original graph can also be k colored, right? That means that if I go back to this example here, right, and if I say that, let's say that is this graph 4 colorable, if I ask the question, right, then the answer is look at any one node which has less than 4 edges, strictly less than 4 edges, right? For example, S6, right? I can remove S6 from this graph and only have a graph of S1, S2, S3, S4, and S5. And if the remaining graph is 4 colorable, then the original graph is also 4 colorable. This is actually true even for 3 colors. For example, if I remove S6, which has only 2 nodes, which has only 2 edges, the remaining graph, if it is 3 colorable, then the original graph is also 3 colorable. And I can subsequently apply this for the remaining graph also, and I keep reducing this, correct? And if I am able to simplify the remaining graph and keep going to a single node graph, then I can always say that, okay, now this graph can be colored using k colors. Then I can go back and then say the original graph can be colored using k colors. But if I can't reduce the graph any further and all nodes in the graph at that point in time has greater than or equal to k edges, then I say that this node is not k colorable. This node actually, then you say actually may not be k colorable. That's really what you say, but it's okay, right? Let's just take it as not k colorable. Then at that point in time, in the remaining graph, you pick one node and then you say that that node has to be spilled, right? That's really what is Chetan's algorithm all about. Okay, so the key intuition is that you take the original graph, remove one node which has less than k edges, and if the remaining graph can be colored using k colors, the original graph can also be colored using k colors, right? That's the whole idea here. And why is this true? This is true because if you have colored the remaining graph using k colors, the node that you have removed has less than k edges. That means that it has only at most k minus 1 neighbors. And if each one of these k minus 1 neighbors have different colors, you still have one color left, the kth color left, which can be given to the node that you have removed. And that is why you can actually color the entire graph using k colors. If the remaining graph, if the graph after removing the node n, if it can be colored using k colors, that could use at most k minus 1 colors for the neighbors of the node n. Therefore, the node n can be given the kth color, and therefore you could color the graph. That's the idea there. Okay, it will become obvious when we do an example, right? So the Chetan's graph coloring algorithm essentially produces in the proceeds in the following way. It has what is called the simplify step, which essentially takes the interference graph, keeps removing nodes which has fewer than k edges, right? And it can keep removing them one after the other, right? And after it has removed all the nodes which has fewer than k edges, right? If the remaining graph has all nodes with at least k edges or more, then that is when the simplify process should stop. Until then, the simplify process can go. If the simplify process keeps removing all the edges, then the graph is completely simplified and can be k colored. That's essentially what it means, right? If you end up in a graph where the remaining nodes have greater than or equal to k edges to each one of the nodes, then you go to the spill step, where you try to now pick one of the nodes in the remaining graph and then identify that as a spill node. That means that it will not be allocated a register. Then in the remaining graph, again, you try to apply the simplify step. And again, you go through this process of simplify and spill repeatedly until you are able to reduce the graph completely. Now, as you keep doing this, right, Chaitan's algorithm also does the following thing. Whenever you remove a node using the simplify step, you push it into the stack, right? And you keep pushing them into the stack. And when you end up in a graph where, all the nodes have k or more edges, you decide on a spill node, put the node also into the stack, and then say that that node is going to be spilled. That node is not going to be using a register. Then you keep continuing this process. Now, once you have removed all the nodes in your interference graph, you have all your nodes being pushed into your stack in some order. You pop them in the reverse order and you color them. That is the next step. So color the nodes in the reverse order in which they are removed in the simplify step. And you try to color them if they are not spill nodes. If they are spill nodes, you say that they are going to be used from memory. That's essentially what is Chaitan's algorithm. So at a high level, you first build the interference graph, then you go through the simplify step, and then if you can't simplify further, right, you select a node and spill, and then again you start simplify, select a node and spill. But if you can completely simplify, then you have removed all the nodes. Then you try to do the coloring process, which is in the reverse order in which you removed the node. This is called the forward pass, and this is called the reverse pass, right? I give the algorithm for the forward pass and the reverse pass in some level of detail, but actually I will run you through an example which is more, which is actually better explained than going through this, right? So in the forward pass, first you build the interference graph, which basically identifies which nodes conflict with each other and therefore has an edge between them. Then in the forward pass, you have to keep removing nodes which has fewer than k edges, right? So while G has a node V such that it has, it has less than k number of edges, you simply remove V, push it into the stack, and then say that there is no spill for V. Then delete V and all the edges which are connecting to V. And you keep doing this process, right? If you can't simplify any further, you come out of the while loop. Then you do the spill step, where you try to identify one of the remaining nodes as a spill node and push it into the stack, saying that it is a spill node. Then delete that particular node also and the edges connected to it. And then after that, again, you go back to this simplify step. Keep doing the simplify. If you can't simplify, go to spill. Just do one spill, then come back to simplify. Once you are able to completely simplify the graph, by doing the simplify and spill process, all the nodes would be in your stack in some order. Then you do the coloring process in the reverse order, basically pop nodes from the stack, right? And then if the node says it is no spill, then it has to be allocated a color. Now, in that particular graph, at that point in time, you have, for example, for the very first node, you can assign any color. Then for the next node, you can assign a color which is not adjacent to its nodes. Therefore, you can keep doing that. And if it is a spill node, then you basically mark it as spill and then reintroduce it in the graph and add all the edges and then do that. I'll actually run through an example so that you will understand. And after that, I can take questions on this, right? So this is a very effective algorithm. It is efficient as well and is used in many production compilers. Okay, so here is an example. Again, I'm not going to go into all the details here. This is a program which this is actually an iterative. There is a loop here. Okay, but forget about all of the things. Let's say that these are the live ranges of these variables, right? Then for this live range, this is the interference graph. You can go back and verify this interference graph at a later point in time when you have the slides with you. But for now, assume that this is the interference graph, right? Now, let's say that we want to color this graph using 4 colors, right? K is equal to 4. So in the simplify step, we will keep removing nodes one after another, which has fewer than 4 edges. For example, here, K has only 2 edges. Sorry, not K. H has only 2 edges. Therefore, I can remove H and I can put it into the stack saying that H does not require a spill. Then in the next step, G has only 2 edges. Right? Originally, remember, G has 3 edges, but now after removing H, G has only 2 edges. G also can now be removed, saying that there is no spill. That means that if the rest of the graph can be colored using 4 colors, G can also be colored using 4 colors because G has only 2 neighbors, and at most they will only use 2 different colors, so the third color or the fourth color can be used by G. Same way for H, right? But anyway, now remove G. After that, you have K, which has 3 neighbors. Since we are going to color for K is equal to 4, 3 and fewer edges are fine, so we can remove K, right? And of course, you can remove F also because F has 3. Then of course D, right? You can see that M has 3 edges. Then B has 3 edges. Then you can remove these nodes in some order, right? So you have removed all the nodes in your graph, and then whenever these nodes are spilled, they were removed using the simplify process. Therefore, not spilled. When these nodes were removed, they were removed using the simplify process. So they all have been tagged as no spill, right? Even though the original graph, in the original graph, many of these nodes had more than 3 edges, right? Many of these nodes had more than 3 edges. When you simplified them in one particular order, you have figured out that, right, you are able to remove all of them without any spill. Okay, now how do we color this? We start coloring this in the reverse order, right? So this is the original graph. I have shown all the edges in a light, color. And as we keep introducing these nodes back, right, you will see that those edges are also going to be introduced. So in the top of the stack, we have J. So let's color J first, right, with some color. Let's say red. Then after that, I have to color C, right? The node C, right, is over here, and it has no edges to J. Therefore, it can also be given the same color, right? Because J and C do not have any edges between them, so they can be given the same color. The next node is D. D is connected to J. Therefore, D cannot be given the same color as red. But of course, D is also connected to C. Therefore, it has to be given a color different from C. But fortunately, J and C are both red. So I can go ahead and give yellow color to D, right? The next node is B. Now B is adjacent to both D and J as well as J. So it has to be given a different color, right? So it is given blue. The next node is M. M is adjacent to B, M is adjacent to C, but M is not adjacent to D. Therefore, M can be given the yellow color. Well, in this particular case, I'm sorry, I didn't see this edge here. There is an edge between D and M. Therefore, sorry, I didn't see that light color edge. So M has to be given a color which is not same as B, D, or C, right? That means that it has to be a different color and it is green. Yeah, my eyesight is poor. Now the next node is E. It has to be given a color which is different from red, blue, or green. Therefore, it can be given yellow. Then, of course, we have F, which has to have a color different from red, yellow, and green. We can give it blue. And then K has to be given a color which can be green. And then G has to be given a color which is yellow. And then J has to be given a color which is H. So in this case, right, we were able to simplify the graph just by using the simplify procedure. Therefore, all the nodes are marked as no spill, and we were able to indeed color the graph using 4 colors, right? So these 4 colors correspond to 4 different registers. So let's ask the question, what happens if you have only 3 colors, right? So let's do this little bit quickly. H can be removed. It has only 2 edges. Then G can be removed, only 2 edges. And now you have a situation where every node has 3 edges, right? Remember, K is equal to C. Therefore, you can only remove nodes which have 2 or 1 edges, but every one of the node has more than more than 2 edges, right? So for example, K has 1, 2, 3 edges, D has more than 3 edges, C has 3 edges, and so on and so forth. So you can't do any more simplify in this graph. So at this point in time, you decide to spill one of the nodes. You can spill a node with the least usage. Sometimes people also use a heuristics. You can spill a node which has a maximum number of edges, which may not be a right thing to do, but that is also a possibility. But let's assume in this case, B is the least used, right, variable. And so if we decide to spill B, therefore you say B is going to be spilled, you remove B, correct? Then in the remaining graph, again, you start applying the simplify process. Now K can be removed because it has only 2 edges. And after removing this, you can see C can be removed. Then you can see that D can be removed, right? And then you can see that M can be removed, E can be removed, F can be removed, and J can be removed. Right? Now you have removed all of these nodes except for B. All others are now going to be allocated registers. So let's see how they are going to get allocated. First J, then F, then E, then you have M. As you can see that as we keep giving colors, we are using colors which are different from its neighbors. That's the idea, right? Now K is given a color which is different from J and D, right? Now the next node that is there on the top of the stack is B, but we know that B is not going to be given any register. Therefore, B is spill. Therefore, we don't give any color to it, but we introduce all the edges now, right? And then, of course, you color G and then H, right? So this is exactly how Chaitan's graph coloring algorithm works, right? So as I mentioned, the spill heuristic is that you have to select a node for spilling, and you can go by the cost. You can also use a combination of cost and degree. There are several ways of doing it. I will not go into the degree, or you can do this cost divided by degree as a heuristic. Okay. So let me just take a minute here and then take any questions that you may have. We may want to spend another 10 minutes to complete our discussion. Are there any quick questions? Yeah.
Hi, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So my question was that does this graph incorporate information about time? Like we saw the graph defined for entire program execution, but the context is also dynamic, right? So is the graph also dynamic?
What do you mean by the context is dynamic?
We can have different variables introduced at different times. So
that information has been captured in the form of the interference, right?
Okay, so we profile the entire execution before to generate this graph.
No, we do this live variable analysis and see which variables conflict with each other, right? There could be parts in the program which you may not be taking during one particular execution, correct? But you do this register allocation for all possible executions of that program, right? You have only one binary which is for all possible executions, right? So your register allocation has to be for all possible executions, right?
Okay. Yep.
Any other questions?
So can you put some light on this spill heuristics and how what all it have?
Yeah, as I mentioned, typically it uses the usage count as one aspect, right? Which is what is captured in the form of a cost, right? Right. If this variable is going to be held in memory, then every time that I access it from the memory, I'm going to incur additional cost. So I should do it for a variable which is used less often, right? Therefore, if cost is less, then it is a desirable variable to be spilled. But then if I choose a variable whose cost is less but does not interfere with many other nodes, then I may spill this, but then still I may not be able to simplify the graph because the remaining nodes will all have more than k edges, more than or equal to k edges. Therefore, I may end up spilling something more, right? That is why this degree is also taken into account. So larger the degree, the better it is, and lower the cost, the better it is. So you combine them by saying cost divided by degree. So the node which has minimum cost and maximum number of edges is the ideal node for spilling, right? But you could actually say whatever, the one which has the lowest ratio of cost to degree is also a good node to spill. Again, this is a heuristic. You may do, you may end up spilling the wrong variable, or you may end up incurring more cost because you ended up spilling the wrong variable. But it's a good heuristic. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, let's try to see some extensions to Chaitan's algorithm and also see what is being done currently in the processes. Okay, there are three possible extensions that people talk about. One is what is called the optimistic spill. The other one is coalescing, and the third one is live range splitting. So let me quickly talk about these things very briefly. So when we keep doing this simplify process, and when we can't simplify anymore, you pick a node and then you actually announce this node to be a spill node, right? Which is most of the cases correct, but then there are a few corner cases where actually you may not necessarily need it to be spilled. And here is one example which will actually show you that. I will talk about that example and then come back. For example, let's say I have this diamond graph, and let's say we want to color it using two colors, right? Every node interferes with two other nodes, and therefore you can't do any simplify in this graph, right? But can't this graph be colored using two colors? The answer is yes, it can be colored, because if I give one color to A, the same color to C, then the other color can be given to B and D. So for example, red, green is fine, right? But then Chaitan's algorithm, when you use it, if you say that the graph cannot be simplified further, one of the nodes has to be pushed into the stack saying that it is spill, right? Then that particular variable is going to remain as spill. This is one place where the heuristic does not always give you the good answer, right? So Briggs notices this and then say that when you can't simplify, you push the node into the stack, but don't tag it as spill, tag it as may spill, because at the time when you are coloring, again check one more time whether it can be colored using K colors or not. And if it can be colored, go ahead and color it, don't unnecessarily spill it. So in this case, you can just push A as may spill, and then of course B, C, D can be just pushed into as no spills. And then when you keep coloring them, you color D using one color, C using the other color. B now has to have a color which is different from C. And then you now try to color A. You saw that, right, A has, even though A has two adjacent nodes, fortunately for us, they both have the same color. So I do have the second color available to me, and I can give that second color to A, and this is what is called optimistic spilling, right? I will skip coalescing in the interest of time, but coalescing essentially deals with variables which are copied from one location to another, right? That helps in some sense. So coalescing, I will skip the details here. You can read it from the slide. The third part contains to live range splitting, because there was a question on that. So what you can do is that if there is a long live range, and if this long live range, you also see that the users are clustered at some places and not throughout the program, then you can actually split it into those clustered regions and then treat them as different live ranges and possibly assign different registers for them, right? So for example, here in this example, you can see that the variable S2, right, interferes with everybody. I mean, interferes with all the other edges, but then S2's use is also, right, you can actually split it in the following way. I'll show you, right? S2 is being used here, and in this region it is live, but then it is only used subsequently only here. So in between this region, it is live but not used. Therefore, if I can split the live range at this point and then reintroduce it, so for splitting it, I may require a spill, and then for reusing it, I may require a store. So there is a spill load, sorry, a spill store and a spill load that I would incur, but then I can actually now release this register during this period. And when I release this register during this period, I can use it for some other variables. For example, I can use it for S4, right? So in this particular case, if I take this and then do the live range splitting, I have this live range S2 split as S2 and S2 prime, and the interference graph now changes, right? And with this changed interference graph, I can color it using 3 colors, right? And in this particular example, it so happened S2 and S2 prime are having the same color, but it need not have to be, because after the last use of S2 in this, right, you are going to spill S2 into memory, and then you are going to reload S2 from memory into a register. It could be the same register or it could be a different register, right? So this goes back to the question that one of you asked, what happens if I am defining the variable in multiple places, right? Of course, in this case, you are not defining the variable in multiple places, but I have split the live range, right? And I'm talking about assigning possibly 2 different registers for the same variable. And in between the place where it is not used, right, I'm actually making use of that register for some other variable. Okay, so this is again another technique that they use to improve, right, extension that they use to improve the Chaitin's graph coloring algorithm. Okay, very briefly, I will talk about local register allocation. Local register allocation is register allocation within a basic block. And when you talk about register allocation within a basic block, these live ranges will not have holes, right? Because from the start to the last use, it will have usage, and there are no holes in the live range. And when that happens, it is easy to do register allocation because you can actually find out what is the maximum width, right? Or what is the program point in which the maximum number of variables are live together. And you require that many registers for coloring this. So in this particular case, this is statement E is one where you have all the 5 variables, S1, S2, S3, S4, S5 are live together. So you require 5 registers to color this basic block, right? And there are some very easy ways by which you can color. You will actually go from the beginning of each live range and then keep assigning colors to them. And as and when the live range ends, you will return the colors to a free list and you keep assigning colors. It's actually a simple linear allocation will work. Again, I have given the details, a detailed example is given in the slides. You can go through them. For example, here, you start off with the S1 register. Sorry, you start off with the S1 variable. You can assign a free color, free register, let's say register 1 to it. Then after that, you go to the next live range, which is S2, and you can assign another free register to it. You can assign the third free register to S3, fourth free register to S4, right? And then the fifth register to S5. And then when you come to S6, the S1's live range ends, and therefore the same live range can be reassigned to, can be first put back into free, and it can be reassigned to S6. And for S7, you can actually assign the green or the same register as S2, right? So this is how the local register allocator works. And of course, this is possible to do because the live ranges do not have holes, and the interference graph has a special form, right? It's a chordal graph or whatever. And this kind of an allocation is feasible there. Okay, now let me just take one more minute to complete our discussion. Of course, Chaitin's register allocator is still very popular and is being used in many of the compilers, but there are also other things, right? We already saw certain extensions to Chaitin's allocation like BRICS extension, as well as live range splitting, coalescing, and so on and so forth, right? But sometimes we also want to do this register allocation fairly quickly, particularly in compilation environments where you try to do what is called the just-in-time compilation. For Java programs, people talk about just-in-time compilation. For many of the other languages also these days, people talk about just-in-time compilation, where the compilation of from the bytecode or the intermediate code, so to say, to the native code takes place during the execution of the program. In such kinds of situation, doing a complex register allocation like Chaitin's register allocation could be very expensive. Therefore, people want a simple method which can do fast register allocation. So one method that was proposed in this context was what is called the linear scan register allocator by Polito and Sarkar in 1999. And this actually is inspired from the local register allocator. See, what you see in the case of a local register allocator is that the live ranges are contiguous, right? And therefore, the interference graph that you get out of these live ranges are chordal graphs, right? But then in programs, live ranges need not have to be contiguous. There could be holes, and therefore the graph is a general graph. And there, these properties of chordal graph do not hold. So what they do here in the Polito and Sarkar's algorithm is that they simplify the live range to what is called a live interval. And a live interval does not have a hole. It is actually active from the starting point till the ending point, irrespective of, in which basic block the variable is not live and so on and so forth. So once you make it as a live interval, then of course you can do something very similar to what you did in the local register allocation, and you can actually come up with a register allocator, but that may be suboptimal because you have converted some of the live ranges into live intervals. It may be suboptimal, and graphs which were originally k colorable may become non-k colorable, or graphs which required only k colors before would now require k plus x colors or whatever it, right? So this is one interesting development that has happened, and if we had time, I would have actually gone through this in some level of detail, but you can read about it. The other thing that I talked about is what is called the static single assignment form. And the static single assignment form essentially gives you certain properties and which makes things a lot easier to do, right? Again, I will very briefly mention that LLVM used this SSA form and does register allocation using that, and uses certain properties of the SSA program, right? And from there, the interference graph, you don't necessarily build the interference graph, but the resulting interference graph would have certain properties. Therefore, you could actually go ahead and build more efficient graph coloring methods, right? More efficient register allocation methods for them. Again, this was done in, I think, mid-2000s. 2 or 3 groups have worked on it and then have come up with efficient SSA-based register allocation. The LLVM has a SSA-based register allocator. So these are some of the newer developments. Even though I say newer development, they are about 15, 20 years older, but still, those are the things that people talk about in register allocation, right?